Coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. They all getting featured. Said it's Tanesha's tips. Coming all three speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured. Yeah. It's your girl Tanesha, straight magic. The greatest book reviews, let's get at it. She not here to offend, she just honest. Bringing words that may leave you astonished. And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just roll. And it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one.
It's June, and welcome to Tanesha's Tips. I know I have been gone for a while, but I'm trying to jump back into it. And the first video of the month I'm going to do is the 15 books that I read in the month of May. I'm going to tell you what books they were and give you like a small synopsis of like what it was about. Okay. So the first book that I read was Qasim, and this is by Jaquel J. This is season 4 in her book series, The Delgado Family. And if you have read these books, then you understand how the setting is and how it goes. Basically, it is a family that were into like street pharmacy, basically. And, you know, along the lines, they meet women and basically how the women have adapted to their life. And so we made it to Qasim, who is not actually a Delgado, but he's an Inferno. And if you read the first 3 seasons of the Delgado family, then you understand how we get to the Infernos. Everybody's life is intertwined together, but when I tell you the series is worth reading. The first series, or the first season I should say, is Capone. The second season is Capadonna. And in case you don't know, I'm sure you don't if you haven't read it, they are both twins. So they all have their own stories. Then there's their little sister Capri. From Capri, you get introduced to Quamir and his brother Qasim, which is where we are now in season 4 is Qasim. And I'm sure I pronounce this so many different ways, but I think it's Qasim. Anyway, that's that book. Book 2 is As Luck Would Have It, and that's by Sonia Lally. And this book was basically about an Asian American family, and they were into hockey. They live in Canada, and it was basically addressing the different cultural things that they go through as far as dealing with, you know, the regular or status quo, and how their culture deals with adversity or diversity, all of the above. This particular character, the FMC, she was very good at hockey. However, they didn't have a professional hockey team. So upon finishing college and playing at her best, she was then required to help her little brother, who was some years under her, but he is really good at hockey. But in helping him, it ended up being more of an obligation than something that she wanted to do for fun or even help him with. And it seemed as if that was the expectation, that was her, you know, you have to do it type thing. And it was all so consuming until she found a voice to like stand up for herself. And I don't want to tell the whole story, but it is a very good book, very worth reading. Again, it's a fiction book, but I'm sure it was some truth in there somewhere. Then there's book 3 that I read, and it's called Qasim 2. And again, season 4 of the Delgado family. This one, the way it ended, has me like a crackhead waiting for the next hit. I promise this book has so much into it. Again, this is a series, the Delgado series, and season 2, and the season 4, and this is the second book of Qasim. And the reason why I said that this book had me or has me fiending for the third book is because he had some traumatic things that happened to him, which were disheartening. However, he's trying to get his life on track. He finally kind of does, and then the end of the book, something else happens. And I am like, what is next? What happened? What happened? What happened? Obviously, it left on a cliffhanger. So that's where we are with that one. Book number 4, Love's Most Wanted by Siobhan Latrice. This too is a series, and I want to say this is book 8 in the series. Each book is good. It's basically the story of maybe the 8th son. Anyway, it started off where this lady had 6 kids of her own, and she ends up marrying a guy, and he brought over his son, so that's 7, and then together they end up having another child, which her book has not come out yet. However, each book is some person. So the first book is the mom and her new husband, and then each book from there goes to the next kid and the next kid and the next kid, and each book is its own, but it's very, very good and worth the read, I must say. So this book was about Unique and how he basically fell in love with a woman after he thought that he wasn't a one woman's man. He wanted to adventure out into the polyamorous life until he found that one. Book 5, Karma's Revenge. This is the second book. I read this book, I think, 2 months ago, the first one, which was I Am Karma. And I could tell that this was the author's first book because of the way it was set up. There were no page numbers in the first book. However, Karma's Revenge, it was a little bit better. You could tell that, it was a series, but also the author was kind of getting a little bit better in her writing or whatever. A little bit rushed in this book, but I kind of did still enjoy it. Just glad to, finally put a rest to what ended up happening, because the way that one ended, the first one ended, was a cliffhanger. Book 6, Tempted by Danger by India Carter. Okay, so this is a series that I read, and this is about 3 brothers and their basically how they were raised, and each book tells a little bit about each guy. So this first book is about gosh, I don't even remember his name. Hold that thought, I'm gonna give you his name. Okay, had to get the name straight. Okay, so the first book, Tempted by Danger, is Diamond and Quincy's story. And Quincy is with an I and not a Y. It's a girl, just in case you want to know. This book basically deals with, again, 3 brothers and how they all, I guess, fell in love with a person or whatever. And this is kind of the grumpy boss trope basically. So yeah, it's got a lot of spice in it, but it's worth the read. It's well worth the read. I kept seeing people on TikTok last year kept talking about these 3 books, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read it. I don't like to read books when people like hype it up or whatever. I like to read it after the fact. So I think it was good that I read it later and not when they were reading it. But I still think I would have enjoyed it either way. But people read at different speeds, and I don't ever like to be spoiled. Like, I don't like people to spoil stuff for me. The 7th book is The Psychopath Next Door by Mark Edwards. This was a good book. It was kind of like, not even like a thriller or anything like that, but basically this lady, she gets out of jail after, I want to say 10 or so years. And she's originally from Australia, but some kind of way she ended up in jail. Well, I don't want to give the story away. But anyway, she ends up in jail, and she ends up moving to a house on the side of this family. And her thing is that she's going to befriend the family and everybody in order to get revenge, because it all leads back to how she ended up in jail, and she felt like she needed to get her revenge because they had something to do with that. So she had like 3 people on her list, and one way that she was going to get to this particular family was through the kids, and that's basically the premise. I don't want to tell you everything that happened, but it was real good. And is she a psychopath? Oh yeah, she is. But good read. It's got a little twisty stuff in there too. So yeah, it's a good book. The 8th book, We Are Not Like Them. This was really a good book. This is by Christine Pride, and it was actually co-written by another author, but I don't have her name on here. But basically, it is just like it sounds. It's a book that has both a black and white perspective of things, and basically, it's about 2 girls who grew up together. One was white and one was black. How, you know, perceptions are everything. The book starts off with a heavy topic, and it intertwines their stories. And not to give the whole thing away or anything like that, but it is a good read. It makes you think. What would you do if? How do you perceive, you know, other people's opinion when reading the book? It was just so many things it deals with. There were some violent topics, pow-pows, the police, how you feel about police, microaggressions, compliments that are backhanded but not always perceived that way, how people perceive themselves and how the outside perceives them, outside looking in, same inside looking out, you know, trying to impress people or trying to gain approval of parents. It had every single aspect of anything you could think in this book. It was a good read, and I would say it's worth it. The 9th book that I read is The O'Kelly Boys by Tanesha Sims. Now, I was just trying to figure out a book to read or whatever, something lighthearted, to get me over my Jacquel J slump, since I'm still waiting on Quasim 3. You know, you don't want to be that person to keep bugging the author, like, when you gonna come out with this? When you gonna come out with this? But it is what it is. But yeah, so I read The O'Kelly Boys, and this was good. This was about 3 boys that were raised together. Their mom ended up leaving them with their dad, and their dad raised them. Their dad was in the streets, but their mom leaving actually affected how they perceive women and how they move forward, and thinking that they weren't gonna, you know, get into a relationship with anybody. But the entire series was about each guy and how they fell in love with girls. So yeah, that was a good one. The 10th book, Intrigued by Danger. This is the 2nd book in the Danger series by India Carter. And this book deals with Diesel and Grayson. And this is a bit interesting. This guy has a savior, I guess, how do you say that? A savior complex or whatever. He finds girls that have low self-esteem, and he wants to save them, like boost their energy, or not energy, but boost their self-esteem, but also appease himself, if that makes sense. And so he meets Grayson. She lives in the hometown of Quincy, and she obviously runs into Diesel there because she's continuously being humiliated when she suffers the loss of her newborn baby at birth, and her husband decides that he's gonna have an affair with her cousin, and her mom and grandma are condoning this behavior, and they keep ridiculing her and making her go to their engagement party, just different things, right? She did have her dad there, but he wasn't really like a stand-up guy. Like, he would just try to encourage her to get through things. He would never rock the boat and say, no, y'all stop doing this to her. And she just needed somebody to advocate. Like, she had went through so much and she was depressed, so she gained weight. It was just a lot. So you could actually identify with why she felt the way she did. But anyway, in stepped Diesel, and it was on from there. Trust me, I didn't spoil it. I didn't give it away. It's worth reading. Book 11, O'Kelly Boys 2 by Tanesha Sims, or Tanesha Sims. I don't know how you say it. But anyway, so this is a continuation of book 1. Obviously, book 1 left off with the cliffhanger, so we continue on to find out like what actually happened between the 3 couples. They had hit some rough patches or whatever, but did they get together? You should read it because it is worth the read. Then I read, I said 15 books, but actually it's 16 books. I read 10,000 Hours, also by Jaquel J. And this is a spinoff of also the Delgado family, but this is about the Casellis, and they are introduced in those books as well. And so in order to find out how this fits in, you should read all the Delgado books first, because that's what I did. I read all those first, and because I'm waiting on Quasim 3, I decided, oh, let me go ahead and read 10,000 Hours, because that one is out now and I can read it. However, I said you should read all of the Delgado books, at least read through Capri, and before you get to Quasim, and then you could read 10,000 Hours. It would be fine, because then you will be properly introduced to Menace, which is Menace Caselli. I am waiting on the second book to drop, which it drops the 28th of this month, and that's called Dawn, and it's by Jaquel J as well, and he is the brother of Menace Caselli, which is 10,000 Hours book. So all of it intertwines. You will understand who everybody is. Just so much going on at one time, but it's well worth the read. Okay, then I got to Still Waters by M. Monique, and I got this from one of my book friends on TikTok. She was recommending that we read this book because she said, oh my gosh, it had everybody talking. And basically what happens is the FMC from this book ends up moving from Louisiana to Florida because her best friend ends up getting really sick and passing away. And her best friend left her house and everything to her. So as the book starts, she decides, okay, I'm gonna make the best of this place. It's really nice. Let me go out on a run. She ends up getting lost, and then enters the MMC. He doesn't like the small town that the lady moved into. However, he lives in a neighboring city, but he has all this land. And if you don't know your way around the woods or anything, then you will get lost. And his whole thing is, you are not supposed to be on my land, and if I catch you on there, it's not going to be good. Well, fast forward, she gets lost. She's been out there for 2 days. All this news coverage happens, and the guy's brother is like, why don't you go and look and see, because it's going to rain? And he's like, yeah, whatever. Well, he ended up seeing the news that day, and he was like, let me just go out here and see if I find something or whatever. He went right to her and found her. End up bringing her back and bathing her and, letting her rest because she never woke up. And the authorities come. And from there, we got a story. That's all I'm going to give you. Okay. Then there is Still Waters, the finale, which is the book 2. And I'm just going to pick up from what I said before. While the FMC of the first book was lost, her other best friend that lives in Louisiana was called. She called her before her phone, lost the signal. And the call was so abrupt, she didn't know what was happening. As she was calling back, she couldn't get her friend on the phone. So she ends up getting with her friend's parents and driving up to Florida to see, where she's at. And she was on the news and saying, hey, we're looking for my friend, and you just find her, whatever. So fast forward, she stays down there a couple of days. Well, that ends up triggering her to take a look at her life. And she's like, I really have all this stuff going on and I want to move. And she had family issues, so it kind of made sense. Well, this FMC of this book and the brother from the first book that encouraged his brother to go find the FMC from the first book ends up falling for her. And they have a big thing. So everybody's story is kind of intertwined, but you get more of the second couple in book 2. And it kind of wraps up their full story as well. So it's all good and it's worth it. Next, the last book that I read is called I F Somebody's Wife, and it actually says that, I'm just not going to say it. The author is Monye Paris, and I think I said that right, and I'll put that on the screen. So this one was a short novella, and it was rather erotic, yeah. So FMC is in a club. MMC sees FMC from afar, tries to dance with her. She's like, no. Next thing you know, they end up in the bathroom. And he was like, oh, you mind? She was like, I'm married. And everybody like, wait, what? It go on from there. That's all I'm going to tell you because the book ain't that big. But yeah. And the last book, Dear Diary. Zay is so fine. And that's by Tanesha Sims as well. This book was funny. I just, just decided to read it just based off of the title alone. And it made me chuckle, to say the least. But this is about 3 friends, 3 girlfriends that's in college in Atlanta. And they end up going to a party, which they had to talk one friend into going because she was like the nerdy book girl and she was trying to, gain her parents' approval. But she ends up going because, like they said, she's been working so hard and she needs a break. So they go and each one of them have their eye on somebody, right? Well, the nerdy girl didn't. She was just so uncomfortable because she never is there. So they talk her into wearing, the outfit sounded cute. She had some like high heels on with some shorts and a blazer. But she was so self-conscious because she felt like the shorts were too short or whatever. But she had, they said she had a nice body or whatever, and she just show it off, which her putting on the blazer was more of her speed or whatever, but they mixed in a little sexy with the, so she could be comfortable. Anyway, as I said, it was 3 guys there and they end up being friends, but 2 of the guys end up having the other 2 girls' eye. So it was only natural that the other one was checking for her. Anyway, it goes on to tell how they all end up, getting together and they all end up friends. And this is book 1. It's June 2nd, yes. And I have read the second book, which I will talk about next month. But the name of that book is Dear Diary, Zay Got Me Pregnant. So, it evolved. Hey, wait. I forgot. Okay, there were 3 books in the Danger series, and I forgot to talk about Captivated by Danger, and that was the last one. Okay, so this book, real quick, is about the last, or I shouldn't even say the last brother, but he is one of the twins, Diesel and Declan. This book is about Declan, and he actually gets involved with Elle. Elle is the best friend of Grayson, which in book 2 we met Grayson, right? In case you didn't know, maybe I need to review these 3 books because these were just, they were good. They each had their own story. However, they all had hangups about finding their person. And the way this book went, it was a little, it was like, well, how are they going to do this? Because when Declan is introduced in the first 2 books, we all knew his situation. But this book was so good because the way it evolved and everything that was going on, it just, I don't know, it just spiraled. Anyway, when I tell you this is like beyond spicy, this was like the bang of like the entire series. And the first 2 had some spice in it, but this one, it took the cake. It's worth the read. You actually get the backstory of both Declan and Elle, and you find out, Elle was really cool in the other books too. So it's really interesting to get her entire story and how it evolves. But I had forgot to totally like talk about that book. I had recorded everything, and I was like, wait, I never said anything about Declan. But anyway, you got to read them. So Intrigued by Danger, and Tempted by Danger, and Captivated by Danger. Those are 3 books. I don't think it goes in that order, but if you look up one, it'll give you all the other ones. And again, it's by India Carter. Okay, so that was my wrap up. If you have read any of these books, please chime in and tell me you have. If you have not, tell me which books you're interested in. I may do a deeper dive on the Delgado series, which I said I was going to do. It's just so much, but I think I may do that because it's worth talking about. But I would really appreciate you guys like reading it before, we get into it or whatever. But yeah, this is May's reading wrap up. I will be coming with May's book haul because yes, I still bought books. As you can see, my bookshelf is full. But yeah, leave me a comment, like, share, because I want to see what you guys think. Until next time, see ya later.
And plus she do shows. She cover all like hands, knees, and toes. Don't lollygag, no, she just roll. Then it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Woo. Ha. Said it's on to the next one, on to a fresh one. Tanesha's tip coming all 3 speakers. Good honest reviews, book shows, and the movies all getting featured.